Thank you so much for having me back. So, who here is a qualified healthcare professional or practitioner? So, what would you say? Like 5%, 2%? We're going to ask that question again a little bit later on. Anthony Joshua is a qualified healthcare practitioner. He's delivering a new Ukrainian headache therapy. I was lucky enough to have been sitting pretty well ringside for the match. Anthony Joshua is one of the folk who we look after at our centre. And I don't know, who saw the fight? So, victory speech, absolutely brilliant. What was the first thing he said? He said, the first thing is I've got to thank all the people that you don't see. The hidden people behind the scenes who basically make his victory possible. And it's very much the same in healthcare. There is always either the patient or the heroic physician who is in the limelight. But as everything you've heard so far today attests to, it is not the person in the limelight that really makes the cogs turn and brings the results. It's everyone in the invisible army. Every good story, like AJ's fight, has a beginning, a middle, and the end. So I'm going to give you 3 examples of carers and the work they do. One is a story from someone who is being cared for at the beginning of their life, one in the middle of their life, and one at the end. So let's start at the beginning. This is a story about caregivers as parents. The person that you see in the picture here, her name's Jenny. I met her at a medical conference. She's got an interesting story in herself, and she very kindly allowed me to share this with you guys too. So she's actually historically an actress. She was the bride in the beginning of the film The Wedding Crashers, if ever you've seen that. Walking down the aisle with Christopher Walken many moons ago. So she's grown up now, and this is her holding her young son, who was born 4 months earlier than he was supposed to have been. So she was skiing in, you know, kind of, I don't know, they call them baby moons, I believe now. Is that right? Is that right, where you have a holiday before? Los Angeles thing. And so she was skiing and went into labor in the middle of Colorado, and her child was born very prematurely and with, you know, terrible lung problems, as is usually the case at this very, very borderline point, the earliest possible time where we can actually help a young, prematurely born child to survive 26 weeks of gestation. So she has suddenly turned from being an actress and a bride and a mum-to-be into a caregiver. She listens continuously to her baby, the signs and things that don't often get picked up by the machines, and is an early warning system, and is an incredibly integral part of the medicine, perhaps even more so, or equally, to the machines and the drugs. This is her husband, Kirk, as well, in the early days when the child was still being ventilated, spending all of those very, very precious and important moments connected still to the human heartbeat. Something that really cannot ever be simulated by machines or by people that genuinely don't love the person that they're caring for. And this now is last week with their little one off the ventilator and doing really, really well, smiling, opening his eyes, almost ready to come off the oxygen. And again, I would probably argue that it's not just because of the medicine, it's because of the care. And now a story about the middle of someone's life. And these caregivers are faraway friends. The chap that you see in the middle here, the chap with the hat, is called Stefan. He is a technology entrepreneur who very recently sold his gene sequencing company to Roche for a tidy $350 million. And approximately a week after the money went into the bank, he was diagnosed with glioblastoma. If anyone knows what glioblastoma is, it's bad. If anyone who doesn't know what glioblastoma is, it's this bad. The median life expectancy is 12.4 months. And there's not a single amount of money in the world or a big enough check that will ever replace the value of life. But Stefan, the reason why he's wearing this hat is decided to fight this thing using some brilliant brains from across the world and slightly broadening the concept of what a caregiver is, has found himself surrounded by some friends from all across the world. He actually brought them all over to thank them, actually, and to plan his next phase of therapy. And this is all of us here. You can see this little device that he's got in the hat. Underneath his hat, he has a very, very interesting new device that looks something like out of a Russian science fiction novel. It's called tumor field therapy. It's these little electrodes you put on your head, and they lyse cancer cells as they're dividing inside your brain whilst preserving other cells. You think it's all crazy. I thought it was. Papers just out. Read them. Pretty incredible. But he's doing his very best. And the person that I really wanted, apart from his wife and his friend Pratima there, who works in his company, and that guy who looks like he's come out of the movie The Hangover, and this amazing oncologist called Michael, who's a pathway specialist, and his son, who's also become a carer for him, is this chap at the end called Dietrich Stefan, Professor Dietrich Stefan, who became one of the youngest professors of genetics in the world, and he works at the University Pittsburgh Medical Center, UPMC. And he really has surprised me. His dedication to caring for this person who's not a family relative, just a friend, has been utterly extraordinary. He lives 3,000 miles away. And I don't think there's a single hour I don't look inside my inbox and I see another strategy that he has come up with, having done some quite incredible molecular profiling on his cell. I'm just going to geek out for 1 second here. Stefan's tumour has been fully gene sequenced, fully exome sequenced, fully RNA sequenced, so all the proteins that have been expressed from the cell, but not only from his tumour, from the surrounding tissue and himself. Dietrich has done a serious job and has created 6 candidate-targeted vaccines. This will all be normal in 5 years' time, because Dietrich has decided he's going to turn it into a company, which he founded the other day. He's a bit of a tech entrepreneur as well as being a genius geneticist. But it demonstrates again this concept I really want to put across, that caregiving isn't just about the classic family member, loved one. It's wider than that. The concept of caregiving stretches further than just family bonds. I believe that Stefan here is going to do incredibly well. He's in the middle of his life. He's in the prime of his life. I don't think he's going to live the standard 12.4 years. I think he's going to live, 12.4 months. I think he's probably going to live more like 12.4 years. But again, that's because of care. This concept of care. And now, the last example is someone at the end of their life, and a caregiver who is the spouse of the patient. Who you see here is an amazingly brilliant woman called Melody, who has been caring for her husband, who she had known had secondary progressive multiple sclerosis before they got married, and decided to marry him nevertheless, even though on the day of his wedding he was unable to even stand. She knew what the path would be. And she has cared for Michael for now, since they got married, 16 years. And he's now at the end of his life. This is him in hospital 2 days ago. She asked me to come down because she was very worried that the hospital were going to withdraw his therapy, and she knew, even though he was barely conscious, she knew by listening to him that he wasn't ready to go. And she called me and said, look, they're planning to withdraw treatment and to put him on palliative care, which we basically know means they're going to give him morphine and he's going to die. I went down. In fact, I drove at 3 a.m. in the morning to go and see them because she really was in distress. And I was absolutely bowled over by her resilience and her wish not to continue a person's life who looks like they aren't enjoying life, but somebody who genuinely knows, because they're close and they care for that person's time was not now. They continued with the antibiotics after some negotiation, shall we say, and I'm pleased to say that after 48 hours, even though he's still gravely ill and really at the end of his journey, he's not going to die gasping for breath because of a chest infection, but he will probably be able to go home and spend the last days of his life with his loved one, who is his caregiver, Mel. So again, a brilliant person who was so able to not only physically care for this individual, but also improve their quality of life tremendously. I remember once when I met this couple before, that he said this when it was in the afternoon. Said, "It's 3 p.m. and I'm up," which is a good thing. It's like a party. For him, being up at 3 o'clock and smiling is obviously a seriously big thing. But it's not a party most of the time. It's actually very, very hard for the caregiver, and we've already heard this a lot. And this is a bit of a crackly thing, but I told Melody that I was actually talking about caregiving today, and she agreed to speak a little. Unfortunately, there's a lot of background noise because it's on the ward of the hospital, but I'm going to play you what she said, just 60 seconds of what she had to say. You might need to put the volume up, by the way.
What, my own personal? I quite enjoy it because I always like looking after people. I think it's because I had to look after my mum. I was always the adult and she was a child. It's just, well, you feel guilty a lot of the time. You do feel guilty that you're well. It's strange, but angry that you can't lead a normal life. You know, you've been robbed, he's been robbed, I've been robbed. I don't know, it must be positive things, but I can't think of it.
It's tough, it's very tough.
So, as you can hear in her voice, and I think you can all agree that she has a mixed feeling about this, a feeling of fulfillment, but also a lot of regret. And I think when I spoke to her later about it, it's really mostly about the lack of support, the lack of recognition, the lack of financial security, and the lack of time for herself that really made this, you know, amazing thing that she's doing not leave her with a sense of elation or fulfillment about this very, very hard road that she's been on. And it's not just that it's not just a thankless task for partners, but also, you know, for friends and parents, but also for their children, and sometimes even for loving neighbours, and even tech entrepreneurs who are starting companies and working through the night to be able to make technology work to help caregivers help more people more easily. There are lots of people here for whom we can possibly help make their lives easier and more effective. So it's all of us, really. We all are qualified in a way. And even if we don't feel as if we're qualified, we're all capable. You just need to be able to care. So I'm going to ask the question again. Who here feels as if they're a qualified healthcare practitioner? I'd say everybody. You've all got qualifications to care, and you can apply that in different ways. And what is that caregiver's superpower? Well, I'm going to give you a quote from a very wise person who worked in healthcare, and he told me this. He said, "Jack, you're in healthcare, and I'm going to tell you the most important thing you're going to hear from my career." He says, "Scientists discover, drug companies develop new things, doctors prescribe, pharmacists dispense, and so on. But the most important thing is this: never stop listening." The power to listen is the superpower of the caregiver, and it's something we can all do. And the person that told me this was my brother, who I visited in hospital 2 days ago. It's that gentleman and his wife who are at the end of their journey. So let's make other people's journey a little bit easier ourselves. Thanks a lot.